I think we had it by the end of the first season, to be honest with you. You guys had played together, though. I came, you guys had played together 2 previous years before I got there, and Jamal was there the year before.
Yeah, but also Doc came in. Like when Doc came in and you came, it gave us a whole different playbook. You know, a lot of Doc's players are for shooters.
Very true. It's very true.
Like real, real.
As we found out from Paul George this week.
Oh my God! but it's unbelievable. Like we knew, like it was like clockwork. We could run V2. Like we were so efficient on offense, and like today, right when we was going over our offense and stuff like that with the guys, and you know, me and Book and DeAndre Ayton be talking and be like, okay, once we start scrimmaging, we'll find like little stuff that we know is, you know, like coach.
How fun is that though? Like if there's something that I've missed a lot of things about the Clipper years because those were 4 great years, but that's probably the thing that I miss the most because it's something like it requires a level of basketball intellect. And I'm not sure how many guys we talk about this all the time. I watch basketball every night. Yes. I watch YouTube highlights almost every day. Like I watch basketball. I eat, sleep, drink basketball. I think about basketball all the time. And I don't know that this next. I'm not trying to be a curmudgeon here, but I don't know this next generation consumes basketball the way our generation consumes basketball. And the corporate knowledge that you carry over as you sort of build up together, like I haven't been able to replicate that. The only person I would say I've replicated that with is Joel and Ben to a degree. You know, where it was just like, if you do this, I'm going to do this. We don't have to say it.
Right. Coach was putting in a play today. He was like, so he was like, that's kind of like JJ Redick and Embiid. You know what I mean? Like you probably have no clue that people be talking about you at other practices. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, and I just think that team that we had, man, it was just, like, if you tried to double me in the ball screen, right, with Blake, you was dead meat, right? Okay, y'all come double me. I'm going to hit Blake because Blake can either throw the lob or he can kick it or he'll dunk on you. You know what I mean? But there was, like you said, it was the intellect that we all had, and we sort of knew, like, I mean, we would do shooting drills after practice, right? Best out of 5, whatever. All this, like, I know me. I can shoot like that, but I can't do what you do. I cannot run full speed. Just run full speed, catch it, and shoot it. And that's why even me, like, watching Book and seeing how effortless he shoots. You know what I mean? Like, on the step backs and all that. Like, you got to know what you're good at.
Chris, when we had Dame on the first episode of the new show, he was talking about you. And he was talking about your preparation, and I think the word he used was manipulate in a positive way, but how you basically are able to manipulate every situation in your favor. And he was saying, like, the second I learned that about you was when his game changed. And he was like, I wasn't able to take my game to the next level until I saw how, like, Chris operated. When do you think in your career you got to a place where you comfortably were like, I'm able to sort of do that on a regular basis?
Oh man, probably my like second or third year. I mean, I say that early because once I figured out that pick and roll, that ball screen, right? Like that's most of the game, right? So once I figured that out, like when I first came into the league when I was younger, I could shoot, but a lot of times as a younger player, especially back then, you're just nervous about shooting. Everybody went under my ball screens, right? So I just played fast. I played real fast. Like I was a one-man fast break. So then when I got Tyson Chandler, and it was literally at practice, and once again, I don't feel like I'm that old by no means, but I literally just came up with, what do people call it now? They call it cut back, cross grain or whatever, or something like that. I literally came up with that at practice.
Snake. We call it snake, yeah.
Yeah, I came up with that at practice. Like at practice, Tyson, right? Because everybody was always trying to go under my screens, and it was like, okay, Tyson, come set it. And then I cut back. And then it just forced the 2-on-1 every time, every single time. And then back then, too, I used to really stop. I would stop and keep you behind me. and Tyson was rolling to the rim, and that was back before defenses had low man, right? Like low man awareness. Didn't nobody have low man, so didn't nobody know how to stop us. So every time we was going down the lane, either I'm getting a little floater layup, Tyson getting a dunk, or D West getting 17 feet. So then the league evolves a little bit and they start doing this low man defense. Okay, if you're going to do the low man, then that means that the corner guy is going to be open. And I noticed as I started getting a little older or whatnot, I started to get a mid-range, right? This is some point, I don't know. I don't even know what year I started really like sort of making that my shot. But yeah, it's actually easy. If you watch the game enough and play enough, like it's all angles, how you set the screen.
I want to ask you about bigs and drop coverage. Before I do, though, in listening to you talk about pick and roll coverage, do you remember when we were first in the league? If you like, we dealt with this in Orlando when we started going to that spread offense. There were still some teams that no matter where the four-man was and who the four-man was, they would take the roll with the four-man as if it was if it was like Charles Oakley and Patrick Ewing playing together, except we had Ryan Anderson and Rashard Lewis. So like we would play these teams. I remember we played Minnesota one year and Kevin Love was taking the roll man and Rashard was at the top of the key, like shooting three. It didn't make any sense. The league has adjusted so much now to the point now where like, so now we see a lot of drop coverage where the low man has responsibility, but he's not necessarily committing all the way into the paint. So we asked Dame about drop coverage, and he's a fan of it because obviously he can just shoot his little pull-up three. What's going through your mind when you see that big all the way back, like Milwaukee does, like the Jazz do with Rudy Gobert?
First and foremost, you got to remember I'm a player too. I'm not a coach, so I don't want to do nothing. I'm on a new team. Don't have me.
You always try to get an edge, man. Just answer the question, bro.
No. I don't want to say nothing crazy. Then we play in the game and they go back and be like, well, Chris said, you know what I mean? So do you remember when we started doing drop coverage in LA?
Yes, I do.
You remember?
Yes.
Me and DJ still talk about this all the time.
Not a fan of it.
Me and DJ was pissed. I'll never forget it because me and DeAndre were number one in ball screen defense. Right? Like we were number one in ball screen defense because I would get into the ball or whatnot, and DJ was quick enough to be up at the point of the screen, and so then we could steal the ball, right? If you try to throw it low, we steal it high or whatnot. Now I'll never forget that first practice when we put that defense in. We was on the far end of the court, and big fella was like, "See, what we doing?" But it was it's a copycat league. It's a copycat league. And so, I know statistics, the stats and all that says go to a drop coverage. You know me, Bubs, I always think everything depends on who you're playing against. I don't think anything is cut and dry, like you got to do it this time. When I see a guy in a drop coverage, it's like, okay, cool.
I was thinking about just now, Game 6 of the Western Conference semifinals. We're up 19 against the Rockets. Josh Smith obviously hit some threes too. But Corey Brewer hit a couple corner threes because the low man was pulled over because we were still running sort of DJ up, corralling at the point of attack, and the low man pulled all the way over. Now, I'm not saying Corey Brewer is a bad basketball player. He's my coach with the Pelicans, all right? I love Corey. I played with Corey.
You say he's what?
No, I'm not saying he's a coach with us. He's our PD guy, one of our PD guys.
Who is?
Corey Brewers.
Did not know that.
Yes, he is.
Know that.
He's doing the Evan Turner thing, just straight from the bubble right into coaching. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyways, if Corey Brewer doesn't hit those threes and we advance to the Western Conference Finals and play the Warriors, do we change our entire pick and roll coverage the next year? I don't know that we do. But now it's so in vogue, like it's the way everybody wants to play. And obviously Milwaukee, and I said this during the playoffs, Milwaukee, they're the number one defense in the league 2 years in a row. they play a certain way the whole season. But to win in the playoffs, you have to be able to adjust a little bit. And I'm not knocking Bud because I think Bud's one of the best coaches in the league. I'm not knocking anybody on their team. But there has to be some level of flexibility, series to series, matchup to matchup, where you can go to different coverages.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and it's crazy, like when we played against Portland last year, and we had BK when I was in Oklahoma City, and I talked to Billy about it. We actually lost the game to Portland because we was in a drop coverage, right, with Dame and Steph, Dame, all them like that to shoot the lights out like off the dribble like that. They love to see the drop coverage because if they handle good enough, they're not worried about the guy who's guarding them, you know. And Dame was like off. He was off most of the game, but I was still getting mad throughout the game. I was like, all right, now you just basically giving them a chance to line it up. What was the end of the game, that fourth quarter? He ran them off. Wham, wham. And then you're like, oh, we need to come up. But now, you know, like I said, I'm not a coach, but I definitely think you got to be a little bit flexible with that stuff because sometimes those are like routine shots. Right?
Practice shots. Walking into a practice shot.
You know, the guys sitting back there. And what's funny is because to me, I thought that the drop coverage was to give up like twos, right? Totally different if you're giving up threes. Right? Don't you think, Bubs?
So in theory, the coverage should be the guys into the ball right, into the ball. The big comes up to screen. He chases over. He gets a rear view contest. That's how we were taught 4 years ago in LA when we first went to this coverage and teams started first going to this coverage. The problem is when the defensive big doesn't come up with the screener, the screener and the ball handler can just sit there and wait, and the screener gets a free screen on the guy. So the sort of the theory of like chasing over, you're getting clipped almost every time. There's no second defender there, so it's easier to screen. Would you agree with me? I guarded a little bit of point guards in Philly when we went to this coverage. I didn't do it last year, but I know you guard point guards still. Like to me, that's the biggest problem. So in theory, I get what they're saying. You're forcing over the top. You're chasing from behind. You're getting them inside the line. But if you're getting a free screen on a guy and you have a guy like Kyrie, Dame, Kemba, all these guys that can manipulate and shoot pull-up threes, it's a problem.
My thought also has always been, obviously you got to like protect the team and figure out what you're willing to give up. You can't take away everything, right? But what I always say in the ball screen, Bubs, is I always think about who the most dangerous guy, right? Who's the most dangerous of the two that's in the ball screen? You know what I mean? You got to have principles for sure, but when they get into like game time situations, like, I mean, I don't, like you put Dame, if Dame got the ball and I don't know, depending on who it is,